Hello and welcome to the A-List. I'm Dominic Bongiorno. My guest has been a sports writer for nearly 30 years. 15 of those years he has covered Chicago sports. He's currently a sports columnist for the Sun-Times and has a book coming out called Ozzy's School of Management. Please join me in welcoming Rick Morrissey. Hi, how are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Now, let me ask you, what are you doing right now in your job?
Well, last night I covered the Bulls game, Game 5 of their playoff series against the 76ers. So we're kind of in the middle of that, figuring it's going to end pretty soon without Derrick Rose. But that's taken up a lot of my time. Lately, I'll go back to Philadelphia for Game 6 tomorrow. And then, baseball season will be in full swing. So that's
so
kind of
pretty busy.
Yes.
Now, do you have to have a column like every week or every month or what? What are the?
I write 4 columns a week, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I have the freedom to really write pretty much whatever I want, whatever topic is in the news or whatever sport's going on. So that's really nice to kind of have that luxury of picking and choosing. So it might be a long summer for Chicago baseball. Yeah. So sometimes I'll be able to look for something else to write about, I hope.
Could you do like side columns? Like, could you do extra columns or anything like that?
I could. It's kind of a fluctuating schedule. So if, let's say the Bulls and the Hawks were in the playoffs at the same time, I might write 5 or 6 columns in a row, days in a row, and I might get a couple days off. It's not really a 9 to 5 traditional job. So I'm going to go to the Olympics later in the summer in London, and that's 2.5 straight weeks. I'll write whatever 19 straight days. I'll write. That's just the way it is, but it's fun. I don't mean to.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make you think it's drudgery, because it's not. It's a lot of fun, but it just varies depending on the season and the event.
Yeah, it does sound fun. Do you usually travel for the Olympics, or?
I've gone to, I think this will be my 6th Olympics. I'd have to add it up, but I've gone to a number of them, and I really like them. There's a lot of good stories there. There's obscure sports. I go back and forth trying to decide how much people are interested in the United States and some of these things, but I find that a lot of the stories are really good of athletes overcoming things, upsets, that nobody expected, those sort of things. So,
well, let's change the topic. I see that you brought your copy of your book called Ozzy's School of Management. Now, what what gave you determination or inspiration to write a book? Well,
I had written 2 novels, and they didn't get published. I had 2 literary agents, and they couldn't sell it. And I was frustrated, and every time I went to, you sort of need a literary agent if you want to sell a book in New York. So every literary agent I contacted with my novels, they'd always say, "Oh, great, I'll take a look at it. Why don't you write about sports, though? Why don't you write nonfiction?" Because that's what I do, and I have a platform. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to try this, And so I spent, 3 years kind of banging my head against the wall with the novels, and finally just said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I got a great agent in New York who sold it in 3 days. I actually had an idea for another book, nonfiction book, and he kind of talked me out of it. Didn't think there would be a market for it. He said, "Well, what about Ozzie Guillen?" I said, "Well, what about Ozzie Guillen?" I'm so kind of close to the situation. It didn't really occur to me that it would be a national type book. And he said, no, he's huge around the country. So that was it. And I wrote up a proposal, and he sold it in 3 days.
Oh, that's fast.
Yes.
All right. Now, since we're speaking of Ozzie Guillen, how do you, from a writer's standpoint, how do you feel about his comment about Castro?
Well, I mean, I kind of felt it was something like that was inevitable. I think we in Chicago understood that having dealt with the guy for 8 years, that this was, you know, he'll say anything.
Yeah.
And we love him for it. The media, we love him for it. But you know, you can't go into Miami where it's sort of the Cuban-American center of the country and you know, profess your admiration for Fidel Castro. I don't think he meant that he loves Fidel Castro.
No, I don't.
I think he meant, I can't believe a guy stays in power this long, you know, without getting assassinated. I think that's what Ozzie meant, but it really doesn't matter what he meant. It matters what he said, and you know, that was indefensible.
Well, that's I completely agree. And Fidel Castro was a baseball player, I heard, and he was probably speaking like he was a good baseball player too. That Ozzie was saying that.
Yeah, but I do think, you know, Ozzie will get ahead of himself sometimes,
Yeah.
and he'll say things and he'll get carried away. But he was definitely talking about Fidel Castro, the dictator,
Yeah.
not the baseball player. So.
Yeah. Well, do you think that this book is going to win an award or be nominated for an award or anything?
Oh, I don't know about that.
No,
I just hope it sells a few copies, you know.
Well, I mean, I know me and my family will definitely buy
Well,
one.
God bless you. No, but you know, it's interesting. I think he's a really interesting guy. I know that there's some Ozzie fatigue out there. I think people here had 8 years of Ozzie, and I think it was good he went somewhere else. I think everybody involved, it was good for all of them. But I think we're going to really appreciate him the more the years go on, that what we had here and how enjoyable he was. And and I think he's an underappreciated manager. I think he's a good manager. I know he's took a lot of criticism here, but I think the historical record's going to show that he was pretty good.
Well, why don't you hold up the book?
Okay.
And in the newspaper, is there like what sort of process goes on while you're like writing? Like you write a column, and then what happens? Where does it get sent?
Well, can I put this down
Yeah,
now?
okay.
I write my columns on a laptop computer, and for example, last night at the Bulls game, we had a 10:55 deadline. I want to say the game ended probably about 11 o'clock. So we're really scrambling. I mean, it's because we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with the game. It could be the end of the season for the Bulls. So anyway, I write, I think, about a 750-word column, and I email it into the office. And there are editors there who take a look at it. Probably goes through 2 different editors to look for grammatical errors, factual errors, clean up, you know, any bizarre ramblings I might have had when I wasn't thinking, and then they'll put a headline on it, and that's all done via computer now, and goes to the printer and goes online. That's kind of how it works. Now,
Since we're the Bulls have been in playoffs and Derrick Rose's injury has been a factor, how do you think that the team has been taking it?
Well, I thought they were going to be. I thought they would do better than they have. I've been disappointed in how they played. I don't think they've been very good. I think it's been really bad basketball. It's been really hard to watch. The 76ers aren't a very good team, and I thought the Bulls' depth was I thought, and they still might. I mean, they still could beat the 76ers in the series, but they've got to play better. I thought they were going to be better than this. I thought they could get to the Eastern Conference Finals, even with the depth they have. But I think we're learning how important and how good Derrick Rose is and what he means to this team.
As a writer, what was your biggest accomplishment?
Oh boy, I don't know. I think in terms of kind of events that I've covered, I know you're going to like this one, but I really enjoyed covering the White Sox World Series.
Yeah.
I know you're a huge fan. Just because it was, I felt I was part of something that was historical. That it, you know, there'd been so many writers who had come through Chicago who never got a chance to cover a World Series winning team. You know, the Cubs haven't won in, you know, centuries, it feels like, and the Sox hadn't won in, I think it was 86 years or whatever it was. So you know, is it an accomplishment? No, but I felt like I was really chronicling something unique.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for joining me, Rick. It's been a pleasure learning about the writing process for sports at the Sun-Times. I'm Dominic Bongiorno, and thanks for watching The A-List.